Oh, and we back for another one. I'm about to get right into this freaking podcast because I'm a gangster. I'm a boss. I'm a boss. I'm a boss. Let's get into this. So today's episode of the Uneducated Investor Podcast is brought to you by no one. You thought we were actually good enough to get sponsors? Woo! You have a lot to learn. Hi, Fly Stewie here, and welcome, flight crew. I'm super fascinated by one thing, actually. And that one thing is the constant evolution of comedy. It is just super fascinating to me. Of course, we have stand-up, which, started as basically a public speeches that were just funny. People didn't really know what it was. And now it's more of a traditional art form where, have stand-up comedians, famous ones like Dave Chappelle and Kevin Hart. We have comedy movies. Of course, those are hilarious. We all go to the movies just to laugh. Who doesn't love a good rom-com? And then we had comedy on social media. A lot of the fascination with Twitter when it first started was it was just really funny. It was nice to see people tweet some very witty and funny stuff. You could be very timely, a news event just happens, you hit the hashtag and all of the most wittiest comments you get to see first. Right now, there is a couple of things that are happening in the comedy industry that is really fascinating to me, and I'm really curious about just the continuation of it. One of them, of course, has to be the Netflix comedy specials. It's almost now like a pretty formed business model, right? If you're a comedian, you want to build up enough leverage so that you can approach Netflix, get a deal on the table, and then have your own Netflix special. That's essentially pretty much it. That's essentially what the game has come down to. And Netflix is investing heavy at this. I mean, you can talk about Dave Chappelle's specials. You can talk about Kevin Hart's specials. They're really throwing money, even at like Chris Rock specials. They're really throwing money to get the biggest names in comedy on their platform. And I think it's a smart move. Normally, it's been HBO that's had this market share, but Netflix has very smartly, I think, and they're very aggressive when it comes to getting content. Of course, they realize producing their own content was cheaper, but you need that great content, you need those names, and you need to be known for something. And if I'm someone who loves stand-up comedy, I want to go to Netflix. However, right now, there's one area that I feel that is even more interesting than stand-up. Think about it. Why do we listen to stand-up comedy? We want to laugh. We want spontaneous laughs. We want to think of things outside of the box that we never thought of. We want to be excited. However, there's one form of media that I think by far creates an atmosphere where it's easy to really get those laughs, and it's very entertaining for someone who's looking for laughs. And that, of course, I have to be talking about podcasting. Podcasting, because it's more live, it's more fluent, it's not like pre-recorded, you don't really have too much written down. Me personally, I never write anything down. I honestly don't even know what I'm going to talk about before I even say it. I'm so lazy. But podcasting just allows you to have spontaneous conversation that the audience can engage with. And this is a perfect storm, perfect foundation for some really well-told jokes. This is an area where I think if you're an upcoming comedian, if you're someone who wants to make people laugh, of course, you have Instagram videos and everything, but just podcasting and letting the audience see your natural wittiness, I think this is just has to be the biggest opportunities for upcoming comedians in the world. If you're an upcoming comedian, or if you're someone who wants to be, an actor in comedic movies or comedic roles, or if you're someone who just wants to work on your comedic time for whatever reason, whether it's you want to be a YouTube video, whether it's work, you just want to be more witty in the meetings in the office, I think podcasting is a great area because it just allows that witty banter. Of course, you can podcast by yourself, which, you can tell jokes that way, but just naturally in a conversation, That has to be the biggest thing. And I think this is an area where you're going to see a lot of comedians enter. A lot of them are going to start podcasting, and that has to be the greatest way to build awareness for tours. One of my favorite podcasts, by the way, that you guys should listen to, and this is actually one of the ones that inspired me. Of course, I'm talking about Brilliant Idiots, The Brilliant Idiots with Andrew Schultz and Charlemagne the God. And it was actually Andrew Schultz, a comedian. I'm going to see him May 9th. I'm super excited. This podcast is probably aired way after that. But one of the reasons he became my favorite comedian is from podcasting. That's how I found out about him. So definitely, if you're someone who loves comedy, look at your favorite comedian and see if you can find their podcast on Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Google Play. And as always, guys, the best, most brightest investors are the uneducated ones. Why? Because the uneducated investor never stops learning. And I just want to hit on something real quick. You guys see me talking about just these most random subjects. And I'm letting you guys know, as an investor, if you're someone who just wants to build wealth, it's very important that you look at how all these mediums are changing, because that is the opportunity, whether you're running a business, of where you want to advertise, and whether you're trying to actually invest into something. That's where you're going to see the best businesses pop up. Maybe an app that allows you podcasting easier, or just somewhere in the comedic arena that you see is one of the trends. Anyways, it's at FlyStewie on Instagram and Twitter, and I, Flight Crew, need to take off. Easy. You already know, guys. Subscribe.